For the love of all that's holy in the cosmos, will someone please explain to me how these meat bags are still alive? Dr. Zix-23 chittered, his antennae twitching so violently they threatened to detach from his exoskeleton. The holographic display in the center of the Galactic Research Institute's xenobiology lab pulsed with data streams, each one more baffling than the last. The subject of their collective consternation, humans. Specifically, the utterly bewildering resilience of the species recently discovered on the death world classified as Earth. Gloob, a gelatinous mass of a research assistant, burbled thoughtfully. Perhaps our instruments are malfunctioning. Surely no species can survive with such inefficient biology. Dr. Quasar, the luminous, star-like head of the institute, pulsed with a mix of frustration and fascination. I've triple-checked the readings myself. Unless the laws of biology decided to take a vacation on that peculiar little blue marble, we're dealing with something unprecedented. The lab, usually a bastion of calm scientific inquiry, had devolved into barely controlled chaos. Researchers from various species scurried, oozed or floated from one station to another, each bringing reports more incredible than the last. They can survive with only one kidney, exclaimed a researcher with more eyes than seemed strictly necessary. Pah! That's nothing, chittered another, their exoskeleton clicking with excitement. They can lose up to 75% of their liver and it'll grow back. Amateurs gurgled, a gelatinous being similar to Gloob. I've got data here suggesting they can function with only half a brain. At this last statement, a hush fell over the lab. Even the ever-present hum of equipment seemed to dim in astonishment. Dr. Zix-23 broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. Half a brain. But that's impossible, Dr. Quasar finished, her stellar form pulsing with an intensity that made everyone in the room squint. I think we need to redefine our understanding of impossible when it comes to these humans. Gloob oozed forward, his gelatinous form rippling with what passed for excitement in his species. What if we've been approaching this all wrong? We've been so focused on their ability to survive the loss of organs. What if we studied how they function with all their organs intact? The room erupted in a cacophony of chittering, gurgling, and various other species-specific sounds of agreement and protest. Dr. Quasar's form brightened to near supernova levels. Silence, she commanded, and the lab fell quiet once more. Gloob, for a blob of goo, you occasionally demonstrate remarkable insight. We need more data. We need direct observation. Dr. Zix-23's antennae drooped. Surely you don't mean... Oh, but I do, Dr. Quasar pulsed, a hint of mischief in her stellar glow. Prepare an expedition. We're going to Earth. And so, with a mix of trepidation and excitement, the alien researchers began preparations for their journey to the death world that housed these fascinating, frustratingly resilient humans. Meanwhile, on Earth, in the small town of Millbrook, Milo Johnson was having what he considered a perfectly normal day. He woke up, stubbed his toe on the same dresser he'd been meaning to move for years, cursed creatively enough to make his neighbor's dog howl, and limped his way to the bathroom to begin his morning routine. As he brushed his teeth, Milo stared at his reflection in the mirror. At 35, he wasn't exactly old, but he wasn't the spry youngster he once was either. His dark hair was just beginning to show signs of gray at the temples, and the lines around his eyes were a testament to years of squinting at diner orders and laughing at bad customer jokes. Another day in paradise, he muttered to his reflection, rinsing and spitting. Milo had owned the Starlight Diner for the better part of a decade. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was his, and he took a certain pride in serving what he firmly believed were the best burgers in 3 counties. As he made his way to work, Milo remained blissfully unaware that he was about to become the subject of intense alien scrutiny. He was more concerned with the fact that his ancient pickup truck was making a noise that sounded expensive to fix. The bell above the diner door jingled as Milo walked in, greeted by the familiar scent of coffee and bacon. "Mornin'," boss called out Eddie, Milo's longtime cook and friend. "You're just in time. The coffee maker's on the fritz again." Milo sighed, hanging up his jacket. "Of course it is. What would a morning be without some minor catastrophe?" As Milo set about trying to coax the temperamental coffee maker back to life, he had no idea that high above Earth's atmosphere, a cloaked alien ship was entering orbit. On board the ship, the alien research team was in a frenzy of last-minute preparations. Remember, Dr. Quasar pulsed sternly. We are here to observe only. No direct contact with the humans. We don't want a repeat of the Zygon 5 incident. Gloob shuddered, his gelatinous form rippling at the memory. Those poor, featherless birds will never be the same. Dr. Zix-23 chittered nervously. But how are we supposed to observe them without being noticed? In case you hadn't realized, we don't exactly blend in with the local fauna. Dr. Quasar's form brightened with what could only be described as a smug glow. I'm glad you asked. Behold, with a dramatic pulse, she activated a hidden panel. It slid open to reveal a row of what appeared to be ordinary Earth objects: a salt shaker, a clock, a potted plant, and a rather tacky lawn flamingo. Behold, Dr. Quasar announced again, apparently feeling her first behold hadn't received the appropriate level of awe. Our observation pods. The research team stared at the objects, a mix of confusion and concern rippling through the group. You want us to hide inside these? Dr. Zix-23 asked, his antennae twitching skeptically. Of course not, Dr. Quasar pulsed. You'll be miniaturized and then placed inside these perfectly ordinary Earth objects. The pods are equipped with state-of-the-art cloaking technology, sensory arrays, and communication devices. You'll be able to observe the humans up close without detection. Gloob oozed closer to examine the objects. Dibs on the flamingo, he gurgled. And so, with a mix of excitement and trepidation, the alien research team prepared to infiltrate the unsuspecting town of Millbrook, all in the name of science. Back at the Starlight Diner, Milo had finally managed to resurrect the coffee maker, much to the relief of the caffeine-deprived morning crowd. As he wiped down the counter, he noticed a delivery truck pulling up outside. Hey, Eddie, he called back to the kitchen. Did we order any new supplies? Eddie poked his head through the order window, a spatula in hand. Not that I know of, boss. Maybe it's that new salt and pepper set you mentioned last week. Milo frowned. He didn't remember ordering any new tableware, but with the chaos of running a diner, it was entirely possible he'd forgotten. He shrugged and went to meet the delivery person. Delivery for Starlight Diner, announced a nondescript person in a nondescript uniform, holding out a clipboard. Sign here, please. Still puzzled, Milo signed and accepted a small package. As the delivery truck drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He opened the package right there on the sidewalk, revealing a set of rather ordinary-looking salt and pepper shakers, a small clock, and a brochure for garden decorations featuring a garish pink flamingo. Ha, Milo muttered. I definitely don't remember ordering a flamingo. Little did he know that he was now in possession of the most sophisticated alien observation equipment this side of the Andromeda Galaxy. As Milo brought the items into the diner, the miniaturized alien research team inside held their breath, or whatever passed for breath, in their respective physiologies. Positions, everyone. Dr. Zix-23 chittered quietly from inside the salt shaker. Remember, we're here to observe only. No interaction with the humans, no matter how tempting it might be. Easy for you to say, grumbled a junior researcher from inside the pepper shaker. You're not the one who's going to be sneezed on. Milo set the salt and pepper shakers on the counter and the clock on the wall. He stared at the flamingo brochure for a moment before chuckling and tossing it aside. Yeah, like this place needs to be any tackier, he muttered. Inside the salt shaker, Dr. Zix-23 activated the observation equipment. Log date 2774.3, Galactic Standard Time. We have successfully infiltrated a human food preparation and consumption establishment, commencing observation of human dietary habits and social interactions. And so began one of the strangest and most covert anthropological studies in the history of the galaxy. Over the next few weeks, the alien research team observed the comings and goings of the Starlight Diner with a mix of fascination, horror, and utter bewilderment. They watched as humans consumed copious amounts of caffeine, how their nervous systems not constantly short-circuiting, marveled at the sheer variety of foods humans seemed capable of digesting. Is there anything they won't eat? And were consistently baffled by the social dynamics at play. Why do they insist on asking how are you when they clearly don't want a detailed response? But it was Milo who fascinated them the most. Day after day they watched as he navigated the chaos of the diner with a kind of weary grace. He mediated disputes between customers, soothed ruffled feathers when orders were mixed up, and somehow managed to keep smiling through it all. Remarkable. Dr. Zix-23 chittered quietly one particularly busy afternoon. Despite constant stressors, sleep deprivation, and a diet that should by all rights have caused multiple organ failures, the human continues to function at a high level. Noob, who had been sulking ever since his flamingo disguise was discarded, burbled in agreement from his new hiding spot inside the napkin dispenser. Perhaps their resilience isn't just physical. Their mental fortitude is equally impressive. As the days turned into weeks, the alien researchers found themselves becoming increasingly invested in the daily dramas of the Starlight Diner. They cheered silently when Milo successfully talked down an irate customer, held their breath figuratively speaking when he narrowly avoided dropping a full tray of dishes, and felt a strange sense of pride every time he received a compliment on his cooking. But their covert observation was not destined to last forever. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, exactly 1 month after their arrival. Milo was in the middle of his usual lunch rush juggling act when disaster struck. As he turned to deliver a plate of chili cheese fries to table 7, his foot hit a wet spot on the floor. Time seemed to slow as Milo felt himself losing balance, the plate of fries sliding off his hand in a graceful arc. In that moment, Dr. Zix-23 made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Forgetting all about their non-intervention directive, he activated the salt shaker's hidden tractor beam. The plate of fries froze in mid-air, hovering for a split second before gently settling back into Milo's outstretched hand. Milo blinked, looked at the plate, then at the floor where he should have fallen, then back at the plate. "What in the name of all that's holy?" he muttered. And that's when he noticed the salt shaker on the nearby table was vibrating and emitting a faint blue glow. Inside the salt shaker, all hell had broken loose. "What have you done?" shrieked a junior researcher. "We're compromised." "Initiate emergency exit protocol," another yelled. "Wait," Dr. Zix-23 chittered, trying to regain control of the situation. "Perhaps we can salvage this, if we just..." But it was too late. In their panic, one of the researchers had activated the salt shaker's emergency release hatch. With a pop and a puff of displaced air, the top of the salt shaker flew off, and a group of tiny, alien figures tumbled out onto the diner table. The diner fell silent. Every human eye was fixed on the impossible scene before them. And there, in the center of it all, stood Milo, a plate of perfectly intact chili cheese fries still in his hand, staring at the minuscule aliens now scattered across table 7. Milo said eloquently, "I don't suppose you fellas are a new type of salt, are you?" Dr. Zix-23, realizing the monumental nature of the moment, cleared his tiny throat and stepped forward. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We come in peace." And apparently in gross violation of our non-intervention protocols. And just like that, in a small diner in the town of Millbrook, humanity had its first official contact with alien life. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Government officials were called, then promptly hung up on because they thought it was a prank. News crews descended on the Starlight Diner, their satellite trucks clogging up the small parking lot. Curiosity seekers and conspiracy theorists alike flocked to Millbrook, turning the sleepy town into the epicenter of the biggest story in human history. Through it all, Milo found himself in the unlikely role of mediator between humanity and their first alien visitors. He had set up an impromptu meeting area in the diner's back office, using a magnifying glass from his junk drawer to better communicate with the tiny alien researchers. "So let me get this straight," Milo said, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You've been studying us because you can't figure out how we're still alive." Dr. Zix-23 nodded, his antennae bobbing comically. "Precisely. Your species' resilience is nothing short of miraculous. By all accounts, you should have gone extinct eons ago, yet here you are, thriving on a death world and consuming substances that would kill most sentient beings." Milo couldn't help but chuckle. "Well, I hate to break it to you, but we're not all as tough as you seem to think. Plenty of us get taken out by the common cold or a badly timed sneeze while driving." Gloob, who had finally emerged from his napkin dispenser hideout, gurgled curiously. "But what about your organ redundancy? Your ability to survive with only half a brain?" "Half a what?" Milo blinked in surprise. "Oh, you mean like those rare medical cases? Yeah, that's not exactly a common thing. Most of us prefer to keep all our organs intact and functioning, thanks." Dr. Quasar, who had been patched in via a holographic communicator, pulsed thoughtfully. "Perhaps we've been approaching this all wrong. Instead of focusing on your species' ability to survive catastrophic injuries, we should be studying your everyday resilience." Milo grinned. "Now you're talking. Tell you what, how about I whip us up some burgers and we can discuss this whole cultural exchange thing over lunch? I promise my cooking won't kill you, probably. The alien researchers exchanged nervous glances but agreed. And so began one of the strangest diplomatic meals in galactic history. As Milo prepared the burgers, taking care to make some vegetarian options for the more squeamish aliens, he couldn't help but reflect on the bizarre turn his life had taken. From ordinary diner owner to humanity's impromptu ambassador to the stars, all because he happened to avoid dropping a plate of chili cheese fries. The meal was a success, despite a minor incident where Gloob accidentally absorbed his burger instead of eating it. I thought that's how you consumed solids. As they ate, they discussed the possibilities of future cooperation between Earth and the galactic community. You know, Milo mused, taking a bite of his burger, for all your advanced technology, you guys could learn a thing or two from us humans. Dr. Quasar's holographic form pulsed curiously. Oh, and what might that be? Milo grinned. How to relax and enjoy life, for starters. Not everything needs to be a scientific study, you know. Sometimes you just need to kick back with a good burger and some friends. The alien researchers looked at each other, then back at Milo. Slowly, almost uncertainly, they began to relax. Dr. Zix-23's antennae uncurled, Gloob's gelatinous form settled into a more comfortable blob, and even Dr. Quasar's holographic presence seemed to dim to a warmer, cozier glow. You know, Dr. Zix-23 said, taking another bite of his veggie burger, I think I'm beginning to understand why your species is so resilient. It's not just your biology, it's your attitude. Milo raised his soda in a toast. To resilience, new friends, and the best damn burgers in the galaxy. As they clinked their glasses, and in Gloob's case, a gelatinous pseudopod, a new era of interstellar relations began, all thanks to a clumsy diner owner and some overzealous alien researchers. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. As news of the alien contact spread, Millbrook became the unlikely center of global attention. Government officials, scientists, and diplomats from around the world descended upon the small town, turning the Starlight Diner into an impromptu headquarters for humanity's first interstellar negotiations. Milo, much to his own surprise, found himself at the heart of it all. His down-to-earth attitude and ability to explain complex human concepts in simple terms made him an invaluable asset in the discussions. No. See, you can't just scan our brains to understand our culture, Milo explained patiently to a particularly enthusiastic alien scientist. Half the time, we don't even understand why we do the things we do. That's part of being human. Dr. Zix-23, who had taken to perching on Milo's shoulder during meetings that gave him a better view, chittered in agreement. Fascinating. So your actions are not always the result of logical processes. Milo chuckled. Buddy, if humans were logical all the time, I wouldn't sell half as many greasy burgers as I do. We're complicated, messy, and sometimes downright contradictory. That's what makes us human. As the talks progressed, it became clear that humanity had a lot to offer the galactic community, and vice versa. The aliens were fascinated by human art, music, and literature. They marveled at humanity's ability to find humor in almost any situation, and were particularly intrigued by the concept of comfort food. In return, the aliens shared some of their technology, particularly in the fields of medicine and environmental restoration. They were careful not to give too much too quickly, wary of disrupting humanity's natural development, but the advancements they did share promised to revolutionize human society. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were, inevitably, those who feared the aliens, seeing their arrival as a threat rather than an opportunity. Conspiracy theories ran wild, and protests sprang up in cities around the globe. Milo found himself addressing these fears head-on in a globally televised interview. Look, he said, his usual easygoing demeanor tinged with a hint of frustration, I get it. This is big, scary stuff. But let me tell you something. I've spent the last month getting to know these folks. They're not here to conquer us or steal our resources or whatever other crazy ideas you've got. They're scientists, explorers, just like us. They're here because they're curious, because they want to learn. And isn't that what humanity's all about? Learning, growing, reaching out to the unknown. He paused, looking directly into the camera. We've got a chance here, folks. A chance to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Are we really going to let fear hold us back? His words seemed to strike a chord. While they didn't convince everyone, they did help to calm many of the fears surrounding the alien presence. As weeks turned into months, life in Millbrook and indeed around the world began to settle into a new normal. The Starlight Diner became a popular spot for beings from across the cosmos to sample authentic Earth cuisine, with Milo's Burgers gaining a reputation that extended beyond the bounds of the solar system. Dr. Zix-23, Dr. Quasar, and Glue became regular fixtures at the diner. They had been assigned as permanent liaisons to Earth, a position they accepted with enthusiasm, though Gloob still grumbled occasionally about the lack of flamingos. One quiet evening, as Milo was closing up the diner, he found Dr. Zix-23 perched on the counter, staring thoughtfully at a salt shaker. "Penny for your thoughts," Milo asked, wiping down the counter. Dr. Zix-23's antennae twitched in amusement. "I was just reflecting on how much has changed. When we first came here, we thought we were studying a fascinating but primitive species. We were so focused on your physical resilience that we almost missed the truly remarkable thing about humans." Oh, Milo raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "Your adaptability," Dr. Zix-23 chittered. "Your ability to face the unknown with curiosity instead of fear. Your capacity for growth and change. It's humbling." Milo smiled, reaching out to gently pat the tiny alien on the head with his finger. "Well, you guys aren't so bad yourselves. I'd say we've all done some growing these past few months." As if on cue, the bell above the diner door jingled. Milo looked up to see a group of tourists entering, a mix of humans and aliens from at least 3 different species. "Welcome to the Starlight Diner," Milo called out with a grin. "What can I get for you folks?" As he set about taking orders and firing up the grill, Milo couldn't help but marvel at how much his life had changed. From a small-town diner owner to a key figure in humanity's introduction to the galactic community, all because he'd managed not to drop a plate of chili cheese fries. In the years that followed, Earth became known throughout the galaxy, not just for its inhabitants' surprising durability, but for their unique perspective on life. Alien tourists flocked to experience the thrill of roller coasters, the satisfaction of a well-cooked meal, and the simple joy of a lazy Sunday afternoon. The Galactic Research Institute established a permanent observation post in Millbrook this time, with full disclosure and permission, and the Starlight Diner became a popular spot for beings from across the cosmos to sample authentic Earth cuisine and engage in cultural exchange. Milo eventually franchised his diner, opening locations on space stations and alien worlds. Milo's Cosmic Grill became synonymous with good food and interstellar goodwill. He never forgot his humble beginnings, though, and could often be found behind the counter at the original Millbrook location, flipping burgers and swapping stories with visitors from across the galaxy. Dr. Zix-23, Dr. Quasar, and Gloob continued their research on humanity, though their focus shifted from mere biological resilience to the complex interplay of physical, mental, and emotional factors that made humans unique. Their papers on human adaptability and social bonding became required reading for xenoanthropologists across the galaxy. As for the humans themselves, they took to the stars with the same mix of curiosity, caution, and occasional recklessness that had defined their species for millennia. They established colonies on other worlds, forged alliances with alien races, and continued to baffle and amaze their galactic neighbors in equal measure. There were challenges, of course. Cultural misunderstandings led to more than a few diplomatic incidents. The Great Handshake debacle of 2040-45 would go down in history as both a cautionary tale and a source of galactic amusement. Environmental concerns on Earth had to be balanced against the opportunities presented by alien technology. And there was always the lingering fear, among some humans and aliens alike, that this era of peace and cooperation couldn't last. But through it all, the spirit that had allowed humanity to survive and thrive on their death world carried them forward. They faced each new challenge with determination, creativity, and often a healthy dose of humor. One day, about 5 years after the fateful chili cheese fries incident, Milo found himself standing on the observation deck of humanity's first extrasolar colony. As he looked out at the alien landscape, a swirling marble of purple plains and green oceans, under a sky tinted pink by the light of a distant red dwarf star, he felt a familiar presence on his shoulder. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Dr. Zix-23 chittered softly. Milo nodded, a smile playing on his lips. sure beats the view from the diner parking lot. Do you ever miss it? The alien scientist asked. Your old life, I mean. Before all of this, he waved a tiny appendage at the alien world spread out before them. Milo thought for a moment. Sometimes, he admitted, life was simpler back then. But you know what? I wouldn't trade this for anything. We're part of something bigger now, something amazing, and we're just getting started. Dr. Zix-23's antennae quivered with emotion. You humans never cease to amaze me. Just when I think I've got you figured out, you surprise me all over again. Milo chuckled. Well, keep studying, little buddy. Something tells me we've got plenty more surprises in store for the galaxy. As they stood there, human and alien, looking out at a new world full of possibilities, both felt a sense of excitement for what the future might hold. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together with resilience, adaptability, and maybe a burger or two along the way. And so, what began as a panicked discovery about human biology turned into one of the greatest adventures in galactic history. It just goes to show you never know where life will take you, especially when you're a Deathworlder with a knack for survival and a talent for flipping burgers.